Hey, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new, welcome to the channel. Today we have another Craftsman motor. This one is a newer variety. We'll dig in and show you the differences, and if you're having problems with yours, hopefully this video will help you solve those problems. Hey, if you like what you see here or you found it interesting or useful, why don't you give that subscribe button a click. Maybe give us a like, maybe hit the little bell thingy, lets you know when we put up new videos. What? Huh? Oh, my lawyer would like a word with you.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
Okay, first things first, maybe some identification stuff to get out of the way. Motor data plate gives you a lot of good info on it. This is a 1 horsepower, 3450, 60 hertz, single phase. That's all important stuff. 14 amps when you are running 115 volts and 7 amps when you're running 230. Then over here, it'll show you how to wire it for both of those, and we'll go over that pretty quick too. There's a frame G56Z, which you're primarily concerned in there is the 56. And this one is a ball bearing motor. There's also some other extraneous information here. A number of cool things about these motors is they have a shaft out either end, which is really nice. This shaft is a 1/2 inch and it's got a flat on it. And this shaft is a 5/8 inch and it has a cutout in it for a key. So they did a good job in making them universal. If you think about it, if you needed it to rotate a certain way, you could do that simply by turning the motor over, assuming that your shaft was the right size. Additionally, with these motors, you can run it on 115 or 230, and as you can see down here, it's reversible. So they're really kind of a universal motor. That's nice. This one also is a ball bearing. They made a bunch in this era. This era is mid-70s to, I don't know, whenever they went to universal motors instead of capacitor start motors, is that this particular one is a ball bearing. They made a lot of them that are sleeve bearing. You know what a ball bearing is? Sleeve bearing is generally like a piece of sintered steel that you have to oil every year or so, and it's like a couple of drops of motor oil or 3-in-1 oil or whatever. So it's not that big a deal, but you know, if you don't do it, you can burn up your motor. This is ball bearing, permanently sealed for life. You never have to do anything. Sleeve bearings are okay. I don't think anybody would tell you they're as good as ball bearings. They're okay, and for most people, for most home use where you're not running a thing, 3 shifts a day for 20 years in a row, they'll last you almost forever unless you don't oil them. Okay, so they're not that bad. Some other things of note on this motor. They went from the capacitor being in the base. This one no longer has a base, and we'll get into how we take that apart in a little bit. So the capacitor is, the newer version with the capacitor on the outside here. It also has this mount on there, and they use this. That's kind of a little funny how they mount it. Also, this is thermally protected, as you can see on the label there, and there's a reset button here. So they're actually pretty good motors. They're very universal, okay? So if you are having trouble with these motors, almost always it's one of two things. 90% of the time it's the capacitor, and 9.8% of the time it is the centripetal switch inside that switches between the start windings and the run windings. So 0.02 or 0.2% of the time it's something else, a bad wire or something. But let's check out the capacitor first. Capacitor is held on with 2 screws here. We'll take these off. 1, 2. Okay, all sorts of stuff. We got some decon in there. Mice were in there. I don't know how they got in there, but sawdust, which is pretty normal. Oh my God, all sorts of sawdust, which is pretty normal. Okay, the first thing I always do is these capacitors are like batteries, and they can hold a charge. I haven't had this one plugged in forever, but so you want to short them out. A well-insulated, there we go, screwdriver, and we'll short it out here. Wow, quite a bit of sawdust and decon. All right, so this one is a 259 microfarad and 110 volts. Should you need to replace this one, there's just two. They were nice enough to give you connections here. Wires that you pop off and pop on new ones. Just get one that's at least 110 volts. I don't care if it's 230 volts. You can go higher, but don't go lower. And somewhere around 259 microfarad. You don't have to hit that exactly, okay, if you're going to replace them. So that is that. I'm probably going to bring you out here a little bit, and we will start the. You know what? Let's not do that. Let's show you what's in here first. Okay, so 2 screws. 1, 2. Okay, a little cover plate, and now we're inside here. Let's see if I can get something to prop this up so you can see it a little better. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so on the data plate over here, it says if you want to reverse the motor, you just switch the red wire and the black wire. Pull them off. Take a needle nose plier or something, pull them off, switch them around. Now the motor rotates the opposite way. It also says if you want to run it on 230 volts instead of 115, you have to take off these little jumpers. This jumper that runs from here to here, and this jumper that runs from here to here, you can see there's screws in there. You can take them off and just take that little piece of sheet metal off, and then you can run it on 230. These are all labeled. It's kind of hard to see, but they're all labeled in here. And you can either use you can screw them down, you know, where you have bare wires, you can back off these nuts here and screw them down, or if you have the connectors like these guys, or what's on the capacitors, you can just slide them onto those. So that's how you change all that stuff. Also very important is this green screw here is the ground. And if you are going to rewire these, you want to make absolutely sure you ground that out for safety and use a 3-prong plug. Okay? So let's get you back out a little bit and we'll start the disassembly. Okay, what I normally like to do first is blow everything out, press the air. So I saw how much sawdust was in there. Good enough for the girls' eye. All right, we got her blown out. Let's take off the capacitor. And these guys just slide off. Take that off. Plate off. And we'll get to these guys right here. These guys just clamp on that foot that hold the motor mount down here to the, and these just come off. You loosen up this screw and you can pull them right off. Let's do that on both sides. Alright, and then we can take it out of the mount. And she'll roll around a little bit on us, but just life. Next we can take off the 2 end caps. we'll just, those are probably 3/8. Okay. And now this particular model, they're bolts. They don't, some of them have screws on both ends you gotta hold, not this one. Put all those in my dish there. This one's loose. More looks like. Okay. Alright, now we should be able to pop this guy apart. We're going to have to use, as per usual, a little persuasion. I like to use a rubber mallet on these. Stop! Hammer time. Comes right off. Atta baby. Of course, this one's not going to do that, but oh yeah, it is. So we very carefully take these off. The bearings on either end of these motors have a press fit on both the shaft, the arbor, and the end cap here. So you gotta, when you take them off, it's a surprise as to which one the bearing's staying with. So this one's got all the wires on this side. And that's the one that I can see them coming off in there. Spin them around a little bit. Almost there. There we go. So, oh wow. This cap, this bearing here is staying with the shaft. And that's why I was able to get that off. And this one here is also staying with the shaft. That is quite normal. Pull this out. And there you go. Okay, I am going to use my compressed air again just because it's so filthy in there. And I'm kind of a neat freak. Much better. Okay, be careful. They have these little rings on the end here that normally, there's 2 of them. And the grease on this, other than being filled with sawdust, isn't too bad. It's still got it on there. And there's grease on there. It's not bone dry. Bearing spins well. These are sealed, so I can't even, re-grease them. And all looks good. Let's kind of hit this in here a little bit too. Holy cats. Okay, that ought to do it. When I'm in here, I'll check out the centripetal switch here. You can see there's a little spring right there that these guys are weighted a little bit, and I'll try to get you in close for this one. And as this rotates, when it's starting, these guys will swing out. And you see that when they do, it pulls this thing that way. Okay, see what I'm saying? And that, in turn, does the switch on the other side. It's hard to see here, but this one is just it's a little copper strip that was normally this way, and they get pulled this way and make this contact right in here when this little plastic disc pulls down. So that's how the motor starts. There's a secondary winding in there. Once it gets up to speed and these guys pull out, it goes to the run winding. So this motor looks pretty good, actually, if I can If you can see inside, looks clean. It's not all scratched up. These guys are in good shape. I kind of expected that on this particular motor. You know, it's not that old, and when I say not that old, I'm guessing, let's say it's 1980. I don't see any date code on it, but let's say it's 1980, so it's only 25 and 20, it's only 45 years old, you know, not 70 years old. And it looks pretty good. I don't know that it requires me to do anything. So I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to get some contact cleaner on all of these guys in here. Again, these guys are sealed. I'm going to clean all that up. I'll put it back together and we'll see how she runs. Alright, so let's get this baby back together. She's all cleaned. Nothing needs lubrication. Slide this guy in here. Slide him through over here. Make sure we have the washers on the... Should put those washers in the bottom of the hole here just so I know that they're lined up. Okay. These going in. I also noticed that these ends are cast aluminum. The earlier ones were cast iron. Now when you put these on, be careful that you don't... Just try not to scratch that inner race or anything. So these guys, the same thing. I'm going to put these guys down in here. There's the spacer and then there's this little spring one. Okay. Okay, what you should do when you're putting this together is if you look down in here, and again I'll try to zoom in for you, there's holes way down in here. They're very hard to see that these screws can go through. Okay, that they go through like that. Alright? So you need to line those holes up with the holes in the cap. And the way I'm going to do that, they're symmetrical around here, so you really only got to mark one, is I'm going to put a little black mark on there so that I know that that's where they'll line up. Alright, then I will put this in. Alright, here we go. There's that little mark. I'm going to try to line up the hole with it. Okay, so I got the ends on. I got that hole lined up. I should be able to feel, there it is, where it goes through. Okay, and then I got to line up this side. There we go, got her through. So she just came out a little bit. Alright, so we'll just take one of these nuts and we're just going to put it on there lightly just so that this guy doesn't back out on us when we're putting the other ones in. Okay, same thing, times 4. Oh, that one went right in. Right in. More. Right in. First one's the toughest. And I kind of do these like head bolts on a car, meaning I don't tighten one all down all the way and then tighten the next one down. I go crisscross just to snug them up, and then I'll just tighten that one, go all the way across, tighten that one, and I'm not going nuts, you can see that. Tighten that guy, and lastly, tighten that guy. Alright, I want to show you real quick. Let's see if this, let's put him back in his cradle here. Okay, call it. All right, we'll put these guys back on. You just catch underneath there, and then it squeezes them together. And all you have to do is tighten these screws here. This will just keep the motor from rolling around when I show you my next thing here. Okay, let's just see if we can get you close on this one too. So they got these two little hooks here on the mount, and they have these slots here that go onto those hooks. So that guy's on, that guy's on, and then we'll just tighten down this right screwdriver, and we'll tighten down the screw. And all that does is it clamps the motor to the mount. All right, so there we are. I have a test wire that I use, and this is what my test wire looks like here. It's got the quick connects on here, so I'm just going to connect this real quick. Power is of course off. Slide one there. Slide one there. And I just connected it to the 2 power inside there. Okay, and I have a power strip that's got a breaker in it, so I can turn it on and off, and so that if there is a problem, the breaker will do its thing and it won't cause additional issues. Now if you look here, I left the capacitor off. All right, these normally a capacitor would be hooked up in there. I left that off. Okay, so let's see what happens if we try to start it without the capacitor. It doesn't start, it just buzzes. I don't want to do that too long because it's not good for the motor. Okay, so if that's what your motor does, it's probably your capacitor. Sometimes these will jiggle a little bit. They'll go back and forth. Sometimes it all depends on how bad your capacitor is. All right, so now let's plug this guy back in to our capacitor. All right, but you heard that buzzing. That's indicative of a bad capacitor. Okay, we'll put the capacitor, slide these guys all the way on there. I'm just going to leave the cover off for right now. And now let's see what happens when we give her some power. Look at that, runs great. Okay? So that's what your capacitor does, and that's most of the time what it is when your motor just buzzes. Okay? I have this unplugged in addition to being off. And I'm going to undo these. Also, I guess I should note right here that you'll notice I did not have that grounded out. Don't do that. Do what I say, not as I do. You have that grounded out every single time. All right? So we're going to put this guy back into here. And on this one, they give you a little room for these connections up here so that they don't short out, which is nice of them. Okay, again, there's the 2 screws that we're getting out of our magnetic holder. I can't tell you how many times I lost. I lost screws before I got the holder for them, that magnetic one. Now I don't lose them anymore. Okay, so again, do as I say, not as I do. Get that thing out there. And that was at Harbor Freight. When they have a sale, they'll literally give them away with purchase. Otherwise, they're $3 or something. I highly recommend them. Okay, 2 screws. Capacitor is affixed, and the last 2 are just these guys here. You'll note that this thing is curved and it has a bump here. And that bump goes inside here so it can't rotate off accidentally. Okay? If you're putting your power cords through here. Now you can also put them through here with a one of those nuts. So any way you want to do that, the wire nuts, you put the nuts through there and you tighten them down so that they don't move. Let us get this guy in here. Can't really see what I'm doing here, but there we go. Trying to give you guys a better view than I have. Okay. Don't cross thread them. Try really hard not to cross thread them. Remember what I told you is these end caps, to save money, are aluminum. They're not cast iron anymore. There you go. One newer Craftsman motor rebuilt. Okay, final thoughts on the rebuild of the Craftsman motor. The newer ones, like these guys, you can look somewhere in a playlist or something. I did an older one from '53, and you can note the differences in them. I think Craftsman did a pretty good job on these. This is obviously in the we have to meet a price point era, starting in the mid '70s. Ends became aluminum. This one, not this one, but a lot of them ended up being sleeve-bearing ones. They don't give you the mount, the cast iron mount underneath anymore with the rectangular capacitor in there. They went to regular capacitors. But on the other side, they used a little technology. This is a universal motor. It's got a 1/2-inch shaft. It's got a 5/8-inch shaft. You can run it clockwise. You can run it counterclockwise. You can run it on 230. You can run it on 115. It's got a thermal overload button built in. So I think they did a pretty good job on these. Especially with the ball bearing ones. Some people will want to tell you that the sleeve bearing ones are going to cause you problems, and they'll cause you, more problems than the ball bearing ones will. But that if you're not using them 24/7, I don't think you'll have a problem. So good motor. Hopefully, if you had any questions, this answered them. If you have any comments or other questions, put them below in the comments and questions. And like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Hey you, yeah, you, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.